Hello, everyone, and welcome back once again to the Talks with Taeler Hendrix podcast. I know you guys get sick of hearing me say it, but every week I say it because every week I mean it. I am very excited about this week's guest. He is your favorite. He is an avid Dunkin' Donuts lover, even if that makes you hate him. He is a fan of Massachusetts, all things pro sports, an NFL connoisseur, a pro wrestling enthusiast, and lover of all things pro wrestling. He is the creator of Busted Open Radio. Join me in welcoming David LaGreca. Hello, how are you today?
I'm great. How are you? I'm excited to be on.
Thank you. I am too. I'm very excited. I had no idea that you even knew who I was. So when we connected on social media, I was like, oh, you have to be on my podcast. There's so much cool stuff we can talk about.
I know, and I have to first say thank you for your patience because I am probably the least tech-savvy host ever in the history of radio. So you guided me through lighting issues and mic issues, so I appreciate your patience.
Lies. I don't think anybody would believe you. I can barely download. When I decided to come on to Vince Russo's brand, they had to walk me through the process of how to do this like 5 or 6 times. I had no idea. I was like, I don't even know how to upload to my own YouTube yet. I've had it for 10 years, but...
And I just moved in. We literally just moved the final boxes into the house this afternoon.
Congratulations! That's right. You and your wife are homeowners.
Yes, we are. So we're very, very excited. So I am aching, and everything's a little off balance right now because I haven't really. There's boxes everywhere. So, but I had to do this. I'm super excited. I'm glad we were able to get together. And you're right. I had my Dunkin' Donuts iced coffee on my way here back home. So, and
I'm glad coffee.
I am from Jersey, and I'm glad that you call it Dunkin' Donuts because I hate Dunkin'. It's Dunkin' Donuts. I hate when people call it Dunkin'. So, I appreciate that, Taylor. Thank you.
Oh, you have no idea how much I identify with your statement right now. It grinds my gears so bad. I think that makes me upset almost as much as people not using their turn signals. Like it's Dunkin' Donuts, not Dunkin'.
Yeah, thank you. And I always use my turn signals. Always.
Yes. Like how easy can it be? It's like it's like an inch, if that, next to your finger. Use it.
I use my pinkies.
Yes.
It's not that difficult to do.
I mean, come on now. So you and your wife went through this process of, finding the perfect home, closing on it, making it yours, getting the keys, moving in, and all of this during coronavirus. So what kind of advice can you give to people that are either first timers looking to buy a home or people that need to transition to another home? Was there any sort of things that really helped you in that process that you could pass along?
Well, Taylor, I mean, I wouldn't be going through this process if it wasn't for what's going on right now with the virus. And obviously, like it's, everybody's being affected by this and it's horrible. And, loss of life and sickness, I can't downplay that at all. But to be completely honest, I commuted into New York City every day. So I was living in a town called Fairlawn, New Jersey, and we lived in an apartment right next to the train station because I commute into New York. But because of the circumstances right now, I'm working from home and I'm doing it from home. I'm doing the show from home. So my wife was like, if you could do this from home, why are we here? Why are we so close to New York City? It's time to kind of branch out and it's time to look for a house. So if it wasn't for the circumstances, I never would be even looking to buy a house. So you try to take a negative and make it into a positive. I've always kind of been a half, glass half full type of guy. So you got to take advantage of the circumstances as they come, and you try to make it as positive as possible.
I couldn't agree more, and I want to take that one step further. I'm not a person that's a glass half full or half empty. In my short time on this planet, I've actually preferred to look at things as I'm just grateful to have a glass with which to drink at all. And people can think that's like naive or whatever, but I would rather approach life with still having intact my childlike enthusiasm for said life, because I didn't have a lot growing up, but even I didn't feel like I wanted for much, I kind of want to keep that. And I also think it helps keep you grounded and humble, but also mindful of your blessings. Because like what you said, you have to learn how to take a negative and find the deep rooted positive in that. And for you guys, it was getting out of a situation where, being so close to the city with everything going on that could have been dangerous, plus the commute. Now you guys can settle down. Maybe with the less commute, you have more time together. I think that there's always a positive to be found if you look hard enough.
Yeah, and Taylor, and that type of attitude is contagious. I think if you speak about that, and if you're a positive person, people will react well to that. And I try to use that with my family, with my kids, with my wife. I mean, I think it's very, very important. This is something I don't even think I've ever said publicly, but when I was about your age, I had a near-death experience. So that made me kind of hit the reset button. And from that moment on, I said, you know what? You have to make yourself happy. You can't make anybody else happy unless you're happy. And I kind of look at life that way. And that's how I got into radio. That's how I got into creating Busted Open. And I think my life would be completely different. And I think if everybody kind of did that, if they took stock of themselves, I think a lot more positivity would be amongst everybody. So I was very attracted about coming on to this show, especially when you spoke to me and you said that this is positive. And you kind of said, hey, this is a positive experience. There's not a lot of positive experiences nowadays. So a lot of people love to talk about the negative, and I understand that. I get it, especially in the world of wrestling and social media. There's a lot of negativity, and you can use that negativity and use it in a positive way if you could.
Yes, I could not agree with that more. It's like you're my soul right now. I mean, you can, I just talked about this earlier today on the Hannibal TV, is that you can either find the gumption in yourself to laugh or you cry. There's no in between. It's either one or the other. So you can have your good cry, but then you got to find a way to grow as a person and to be able to laugh about it, laugh about whatever it is, because, you aren't your circumstances. Your circumstances don't define you. It's how you learn from those circumstances and choose to move forward from those circumstances to be a better person and to be a better force in the world that makes you who you are. And I think that, especially like what you were saying in this business, people get so down in the negative, like misery loves company. Everybody knows that phrase for a reason, and it's very hard to get out of that. It's such a pull, and it keeps pulling you down, pulling you down. It's like, trying to be a candle in a windstorm, and it's silly to expect you not to get blown out. Like, it's silly. And I think that's what attracts me to talk to people such as yourself, because I think that more people getting in on conversations like this will be a part of someone else's survival guide. I would rather be that than being the woe is me, negative, let's drag everybody down too. Like, that's just not what the world needs.
and it's easy to get caught up in that. It's easy to get dragged down. So you have to learn to kind of laugh at yourself. And I do. I love making fun of myself. I think I do that on the show a lot. And I'm fine with that. But my host Mark and Bully and Tommy do that, and I'm okay with it. I can laugh at myself. And I also think, to your point, you can't let the mistakes that you've made in the past define you either. You have to make, and everybody makes mistakes, everybody. Yeah. So you have to learn to take those mistakes, learn from those mistakes, and try not to make those mistakes. But I'm 49 years old. I'm going to make mistakes. I'm going to make mistakes into my 50s and into your 60s and 70s. So you can't let mistakes of the past define who you are, or your successes, because everybody's going to go through them, successes and mistakes.
Life is a roller coaster, just like matches. There's ups and there's downs for a reason. It's a journey. There's twists and turns. No good story worth hearing about, worth reading is all up. Eventually, you got to come down a little bit to come back up, And I think, like what you were saying is true. If you keep repeating the same mistake over and over, you're not learning from it, and you're not transitioning that mistake from a mistake to a life lesson. It sounds a lot better to say, hey, I've learned a lot of lessons in life, as opposed to, darn, I done effed up a lot. There's a big difference. And I hope that you are blessed enough to be making mistakes into your 90s and 100s. That should be the goal.
Fingers crossed. Fingers
Yes, that should be the goal. But I want to be a part of, somebody else's survival guide. I want to help change, because we're not on this planet long enough to make all of our own mistakes plus all of everyone else's. So why not save us some time and not make the same mistakes as everybody else? And I see a lot of that happening even with myself as well. Like, for example, I'm so proud of how far research has come in the aspect of the human brain. People understand a lot more about CTE now and concussions and the effect that it has on the entire body, as well as the lifespan of pro athletes. That is a positive force of change, but it came out of something that was so negative with suicides and with shortened careers and health problems and dementia and Alzheimer's and things like that. So, but how did that come about? Because people kept making the same mistakes over and over and over. And even I myself was guilty of that. I've had like 5 or 6 concussions, only ever went to the hospital for 1. And I just turned 31. So, it's like, you have to kind of, like what you were saying, take stock of yourself and kind of, I think the reason, what I'm trying to say is the reason why more people don't do that is because you have to be brutally honest in order for it to be a successful taking stock of. If you're not ready to be brutally honest and look yourself in the mirror for all your good and all your bad and try to be a better person, then it's not going to work. But if you are willing to put in that work, like you yourself have done, and be a positive force of change, like you have to be willing to take that step. And there are good things that are coming out of it, like research and treatments and things, out of CTEs. But it's like, we don't need to keep making those same mistakes. Let's learn so that way you don't have to have a shortened career. Let's learn so you don't have to have those health problems. Let's learn so you can just be happy and successful.
and you're absolutely right. And you've gone through so much. You've had obstacles in your way, but you didn't let that stop you, and it didn't let you prevent from stepping forward. And look at what's going on right now with the virus. Now that's heartbreaking, and so many people have lost work, and there's been loss of life. But at the same time, during this, there's a lot of political unrest. So, we're getting change in a positive way. People have had enough. There's been change when it comes to race. There's been change when it comes, to women's rights. So even in this horrible time, there's been a lot of positive, right? Because I think when it comes to a lot of race relations and, sexism, a lot people have had enough. Like they're drawing a line. We're not going to take this anymore. And, that's one of the positive things. So when we look back at 2020, I don't think we're going to look at it as the worst year ever. There was a lot of bad with the virus, but there's been a lot of good that's happened out of this year as well. So I think that's the balance. You can look at it as letting the coronavirus define this year, or you can look at the positives about how, the stand-up movement and people not taking it anymore. And also when it comes to, race relations, where people are like, we're not taking this. This has got to end. And we're making a statement, and we're making sure that the future is not what the past was. So there is a lot of positive coming out of this year.
100%. And I think coronavirus, as sad as this sounds, was, I think, a catalyst for these things coming to the forefront, because now people have less to do. They're not as much in that hustle and bustle of the daily life of got to get here, got to make this much to keep a roof over my head. I have to quickly get my kid from daycare and home, have just enough time to give them a fast food meal because I don't have enough time to cook a meal and bathe them and get them to bed on time. They're not as much in the rat race right now. So it's easier to push into their face like, hey, this is an issue, that is an issue, this and that and the other is an issue. How long does it need to stay an issue before we start affecting real change? And I think that is something that has come out of that, is because now, people are sick and tired of hearing about these issues, but imagine how sick and tired people are of living with those issues.
Yes.
And I think that's the flip side of the coin. I talk about that. been in Bridget's podcast, if you're sick of hearing about race relations, well, guess what? Imagine how sick and tired they are of living that for decades upon decades upon decades. If you're tired of hearing about sexism, imagine how hard that is living that every single day, day after day after day. If you're tired of nepotism, imagine how it feels to the other person. I think everybody's experienced nepotism in one way or another. You've either seen or felt or experienced racism and or sexism in one way or another. So imagine if that was your every single day, shoved down your throat 24/7, your entire existence for decades of your families. You should be sick and tired of it. You should be tired of hearing about it because it should have already been fixed. So turn that anger, instead of on your fellow man, turn it into change, instead of leading it to attack your fellow man. Like, you're supposed to be loving your neighbor instead of, trying to attack them with all of your hatred. I think that's what people should focus more on, is if you're sick of hearing about it, imagine how sick people are of living it.
And I think you made the best point of all, Taylor. You made the greatest point, and the fact that I think people are understanding it now because, they're not invested in just their day. Oh, I have to get to work, or I have to go to daycare. So, when you're able to sit back and see the scope of what's going on and how people are affected, you're right. This would not have happened if this virus wasn't going on. It would not have happened. So I think you're 100% right. This is where people are taking stock in themselves, and they're not just invested in themselves. They're opening their eyes to what's going on right now. Because I think when things are normal, you're just worried about getting to point A and point B, and that's not the case these last 5 months.
No, it's not. And I do want to clarify for everybody watching and or listening, we're not promoting yay coronavirus. That's not what this is.
No,
we're just simply pointing out the fact that coronavirus was a catalyst. It was a jumping off point because it made people less busy. It made people more aware. And we live in an awareness society. We have awareness day for this, awareness trend for that. But once people are aware, what are they doing about it? Nothing. You have an ice bucket challenge and then people stop talking about stuff. We live in an awareness society that turns stuff into trends instead of staying aware and making a change. Like I was just recently made aware of what the black and white challenge accepted thing was about. By the time I got nominated, it just seemed like it was like, hey, if you're a woman, support other women and post a black and white photo. I had no idea, Dave, what it was really about. No idea. I had no idea that it was related to the struggle that Turkish women are going through in the world today. I had no idea. It took someone telling me about it for me to become aware. And it's like, well, how did it get that so skewed that by the time it trickled down to little old me, it was like just about posting cute photos. It's so much more than that. So instead of just being aware in a PC society, do something about it. Don't just be aware, affect change, be positive and promote what you love instead of what you hate. And if you do strongly hate something, ask yourself why you're hating it and then what are you doing about it? And so I think that's the material points of what you and I are making is it's not yay coronavirus, it's stop just being aware. Now that you're aware, I do something about it instead of just sitting on your hands going, oh, aware, so I must be better. You're not, unless you're doing something about it.
No, but I don't think it's promoting it at all or saying yay. I mean, I think you're 100% right. It's just that, like you talked about, making a positive out of a negative. And I think that's all that it is. And, making people aware of what's going on in the world. And I think now people are more aware of what's going on in the world than ever before.
I could not agree more, and I'm very hopeful for what the future brings. Because of the coronavirus, I could have had opportunities to wrestle, and I can't. I have restrictive lung disease, so I'm kind of on the shelf right now. But it's also provided me. I was just talking with one of my friends. She's so talented. She's also from Massachusetts. We grew up together. She was on season 10 of America's Got Talent. She has her own album out on iTunes. She performs all over the world for Thriller Live and Cirque du Soleil. She's amazing, and even she is so fabulous. She's amazing. She even said herself, this coronavirus really gave me a new lease on life. It made me appreciate so many things that I didn't have time to remember I was thankful for. And I thought that was such a good point that she made. It's not that she wasn't thankful before, it's just she forgot how thankful she was for things, because she was so busy, being a wife, being a mother, being a singer, a songwriter, a performer, going after those dreams so her child can see that dreams are possible as long as you do things the right way. Your dream should never cost you your integrity. Her and I always talk about how important that is for us. And you get so busy, and now that there's coronavirus, you can't be as busy, but you can still be working on your goals. So for her, she's releasing an album this fall that she would have never had the time to write, but she did because of coronavirus. And for me, now that I'm not wrestling as much because I was able to put out one of my books. I'm going to be able to put out several more books this year, and do this podcast and a YouTube channel, all kinds of stuff that I didn't possibly have the time to do before, so there's a lot of really cool positives. And I think social media has that ability to be something very positive instead of so negative and toxic at times. And I think that I want more people to see that, like for you, if like social media and radio and things didn't exist, you might not have what you have today. It might not be as accessible to what you're passionate about today. So I think that innovation is good, and ingenuity and creativity, but the most important thing is self-belief and positivity.
Yeah, and trying to reach your goals and your dreams. That's so important. And like you just said with your friend, like she lost sight of what her goals were. And there's never an excuse for being able to do that. You should always, strive to do your absolute best and to reach those goals.
It's your one life. It's your one chance at bat. You can either swing for that grand slam, over the fence, World Series, win everything, or you can sit on the bench for your own choice. It's really entirely up to you, Yep. So speaking of sports, I know that you are really into pro wrestling. You're really into sports. You were on the NFL radio for years.
Yep.
What are some of your favorite interviews? Who are some of your favorite people that you got to speak to?
Oh my gosh. I mean, so many. I mean, in the world of the NFL, I got to work with so many of people that I used to watch play. And, Derek Brooks is one of my closest friends. We work together. Derek Brooks to me is, the greatest linebacker ever and the greatest Tampa Bay Buccaneer. And he's a huge pro wrestling fan and has been on the show many times. I got to work a lot with Carl Banks, the former New York Giants linebacker. I even got to work one day with Tom Brady. And I know you're a big Patriots fan, but I know you're not a big fan of Tom Brady anymore because he's not a Patriot. So, you got to learn as a fan to move on, especially in this day of free agency. So, I got to go. I never would have guessed as just a fan or as a kid that I would have been able to go to a Super Bowl. That just seemed like something that was just unimaginable. I didn't come from a family of means, so just being able to go to a game was such an exciting thing to do, and to be able to work a Super Bowl and to be able to be a part of so many. I worked on 12 different Super Bowls.
That's insane.
And to be able to be there and to do interviews on the field. I feel bad for saying this, but to interview New York Giants after they had beat the Patriots, right there on the field, I'm sorry to say, but that was and to go into the New Orleans Saints locker room after they won their Super Bowl, and to talk to Mr. Rooney after the Steelers, beat the Arizona Cardinals. So as a lifelong NFL fan, those were things I could never have imagined. And then, in the world of pro wrestling, my favorite all-time pro wrestler is Ric Flair. And 2 weeks ago, I celebrated my 49th birthday, and on the show, Ric Flair called in and sang to me. So it's like, are you kidding me? This is the Nature Boy Ric Flair. So, those are things that are just immeasurable. And, to be able to do this show and to see my dream realized, and, it's a dream come true.
It sounds like it. I mean, those are once in a lifetime experiences with once in a lifetime people. And that's all because you chose to bet on yourself and you put in the work. Opportunities like that don't just get handed to many people. A lot of times when you get those things, it's because you worked darn hard for it. And I
No,
always like to say that like some people like to say, oh, you got lucky. But I always find that the harder people work, the luckier they seem to get,
no, and Taylor, you know this from being a professional wrestler. It doesn't get the respect that it deserves,
Yeah.
and a lot of people don't really respect the world of wrestling or the hard work that you go through. And it's the same thing trying to do a show and sell a show. It was a chore trying to sell this show to Sirius XM, and now it's the number one sports show on Sirius XM. So
That's
now they have
amazing.
now they have no choice but to respect it. So, and it's
Boom.
so there you go. And as I'm saying that, I'm moving my laptop around, and I hope my audio's okay. Because
It's
even though
okay.
I'm doing this show, I'm still not tech savvy, Taylor. So I'm still learning at 49 years old. So
That's how you stay all there. You got to always stay learning. If you're not busy learning, then you're busy dying. That's the mentality that I grew up with was, you got to stay busy. If you're not busy learning and busy laughing, then you're going to be busy dying. Whether it's
that's it.
inside or emotionally or physically.
Talking about physically, I was trying to get the right angle to look good for the podcast. And then I realized I don't look good no matter what angle there is. So it doesn't really matter. So I apologize for that. I have a face for radio, Taylor. So I hope that people still tune into your YouTube video after looking at this mug for your 45 minutes.
I don't mean to laugh at you. I'm laughing because that sounds like something I would say.
And saying that, I have my LaGreca fathead until the pandemic. This was at like every AEW and WWE show in the audience. So somebody, I guess, liked it. So
that is tremendous. So tell me, you have to pretty much stay up to date on things that are going on when you have a show the caliber of yours. What right now, do you have like a kind of a favorite wrestler that you really like watching right now that's kind of renewing your interest in wrestling? And an additional follow-up question, do you have like a favorite brand that you're really into right now for whatever reason?
Sure. I mean, I was a huge fan of the NWA before the pandemic, and I really enjoyed that product because it was a throwback. I've been watching wrestling for almost 40 years, so I started watching wrestling when it was studio wrestling. So I really love the NWA product. As far as wrestlers, I love Tasha Steelz. She's one of my absolute favorites. I love Zelina Vega with the WWE. I'm a huge Britt Baker fan. I mean, don't tell him this. I'm a big Cody Rhodes fan. Cody Rhodes is not a fan of mine. I don't know if you know this, Taylor, but I've been banned. Cody banned me from AEW, but yet even though I'm banned, even though I'm banned from AEW because he banned me because I don't like Star Wars. So I'm not a big Star Wars or Lord of the Rings fan, and I can see.
You just broke my soul.
Don't have your soul broken. I'm entitled to have my own taste in movies, Taylor. Okay. And when he heard that, he banned me from AEW. So, but I'm still a fan of his. I think he does a tremendous job. So, those are some. I love Adam Cole with NXT. I love Keith Lee. I think he's absolutely so fantastic. So I love Sami Callihan. Sami Callihan is somebody that I really enjoy watching. So those are some of my favorite wrestlers right now. And of course, you, Taylor. I'm a huge fan of yours. So
you have to say that because you're on the show.
Well, you know what? I wouldn't be on this show if I wasn't a big fan of yours. So.
I love wrestling. I always have. I don't know. I love all kinds of styles and different like moves and storytelling and different characters. And that was what drew me to wrestling was like that old school. Everybody looked different. Everyone talked and walked different. They didn't all do the same super kick moves. Like they all were different. They all wrestled different. They all talked different. It was exciting to me. It was like I remember one time thinking to myself, wow, this is like a really cool male-oriented physical soap opera. Like when I was a young kid, and I thought it was like the coolest thing on the planet. And of course, I wasn't allowed to watch it. It didn't help that when I was like really young, I like said to my mom, "Suck it!" Like came home one day and did that to her. Oh my God, Dave, I got so grounded.
I'm sure you did.
Oh, I didn't know. I didn't know what that meant. I was in like first grade or something, like something like so stupidly young. Like, and that didn't help the whole me not being able to watch wrestling part, like, but all of that stuff was just so cool. And then after I got into wrestling, I was like, wow, I really want to be invested in this. I want to know why the business is where it's at today, and how far it's come, and why it came that far, and what sacrifices were made to get there. That's like kind of my personality and how I was passionate. So I went back to study the territory days and who came from where the WWF pulled out of to become the WWF, and then later the WWE and all of that. And I really got into like Velvet McIntyre and Princess Victoria. Princess Victoria has actually been a very positive sort of mentor figure for me. I really love having her watch my stuff. I sent her like some of my Ring of Honor stuff back in the day for her to watch and stuff and critique. It's like people like that, like the Leilani Kais and stuff, like they all were there in the grit of it, fighting for, their sacrifices, and their successes help make it possible for somebody like me today,
And Taylor, that makes me respect you so much more. I mean, I already respected you because of your journey, but also now knowing that you have an appreciation for the history. And I used to work with Shannon Sharp, and Shannon Sharp, was a student of the NFL. He felt it was his duty to kind of go out there and learn about the NFL, not just from when Shannon started playing, but knowing about the history of the game. And nobody knows more about the NFL than somebody like Shannon Sharp, because he felt it was his duty. Mark Henry, who's somebody I worked with, he wanted to know everything about professional wrestling. He learned and studied professional wrestling. And I really have such a respect for people who do that. I'm not a professional wrestler, and honestly, there's certain terminology and that I'm not comfortable saying, that because that's not for me to say. That's for you to say, because you're a professional wrestler. You're somebody who steps between the ropes. I never did that, and I never will do that. So there's certain things that I'm not comfortable, because I'm not a part of your world, and I kind of like that division, because I'm just a fan. I'm a fan, and I will never do what you do. And I think there needs to be that line of division. And I completely respect everything that you do. And I respect you all the more because you've been able to do that and learn and know, and to know that it wasn't just about what's going on now, but how much the past meant to your present. So all the respect to you for being able to do that, and understanding you needed to do that.
Thank you. I don't know, just for me, there was just this deep need to feel kind of connected to some of the women that I felt helped pave the way. Like, it always kind of irritated me to hear, so-and-so sparked the women's revolution, or the women's revolution is happening. And it's like, yeah, it may be happening now, but it wasn't started within the last 10 years. No. This was started when you had people like Sherry Martel. This was started when you had people like the Glamour Girls and the Jumping Bomb Angels and Mae Young and stuff. Like, these women helped pave the way. Like, the first WWF champions, people don't even realize, were actually Princess Victoria and Velvet McIntyre. They held that in the 80s, until I believe until Princess Victoria's neck was broken. They had this epic match at Madison Square Garden. That must have been amazing. Like, back in the day, if you can imagine, like, that must have been the most ultimate goals ever. So cool. And to hear her talk about it, she still remembers it vividly. It's insane. But for me, I wanted to kind of respect everything that had happened to make it possible for me to wrestle, because things have to align for certain opportunities to happen. If every woman since the beginning of wrestling sucked, there wouldn't be a me, because people would have decided a long time ago, okay, it sucks, it's awful, it's never going to be on TV, that's it, they're done, they don't belong in the business. But no, there was enough women that were successful, that were talented, that did pave the way, that did pay the right kind of dues, and they did succeed. And that's why I'm always saying, with redundancy over and over and over and over, whether it's my articles, my blog, my podcast, whatever, success is not a pie, and I firmly believe that. I don't care if I like a person, if I still think that they're a good person and they're doing well, I have no problem cheering them on, because I know that their success is going to open more doors. Success is not a pie. It creates more opportunities, not less. And just because you didn't get that opportunity, maybe it wasn't your opportunity. And I think that more people should look at it that way, because wrestling, yeah, it's like a kind of one-person business, but it's also a team business. You can't wrestle yourself and expect to draw millions of views. Nobody's really going to pay to watch you wrestle the Invisible Man.
That's right.
It's a team effort. You got to make each other look good and tell a story worth telling, and there's just so much that goes into it. And I think a very big part of that for me mentally was Sherry Martel. Her stuff with Wendy Richter and Velvet McIntyre, I just found it so inspiring. It was so awesome. Like, she was just a whole different level of good, and she was phenomenal. And I was like, I want that. When I saw Victoria feuding with Trish and Lita and Jazz, and she had that very psychotic, like, she would like shake, and she was mysterious and so like cool, and the way she walked, I was like, I want that. When Trish and Lita, got to main event on Raw, that was a huge deal. I was like, I want that. When Jazz would come in and just decimate everyone like the badass that she is, I was like, that. I want that. There's so much that people can cheer on, even if it doesn't involve you, and it's okay. You don't lose anything by it, Of
course. And people forget, Taylor, that like Wendy Richter was as big as Hulk Hogan in 1985. Like, when there was that whole rock and wrestling connection, like, Wendy Richter was huge. And so people think that women's wrestling kind of started in the Attitude Era, or even now, with the women's evolution and revolution, but it goes back. Like you mentioned, some of the names that you were talking about, Velvet McIntyre and Sherry Martel, and there's such a long lineage of great women's wrestling. But I will say this, Taylor, and I say your name as being a part of it. I think women's wrestling is the best right now than it's ever been. And honestly, what's gotten me hooked and what's really kept me a fan is women's wrestling. I think women's wrestling is as good or even better than what's going on in the men's division right now. And I think that's across the board. I think when you look at Impact Wrestling, I think the knockouts are what's keeping that afloat and what's keeping it interesting. I think in the WWE, head and shoulders, the women's division is much better than what's going on in the men's division. I think in AEW, the women's division, I think the really somebody who's been absolutely fantastic is Britt Baker. Like, I really think women's wrestling right now is what's really piquing a lot of people's interest.
As it should. And that's not just an I am woman, hear us roaring down with men. Like, people seem to get that impression, but it's not. And I don't believe that at all, because like what I was saying, I love all wrestling. But for me, you're getting a chance to see more women on TV than ever. Yeah. And that's the best part, and they're finally showcasing what they can do, and it doesn't take anything away from the men. If women are helping you keep the lights on and the ratings on TV and stuff, don't hate on it. Be like, thank you, because what you guys are doing is helping me keep a job. And the same thing goes for the women. Hey, if you had to work really, really hard to get that opportunity, that just means you earned it. It wasn't just handed to you. Don't be afraid to work hard, and I think like what you were saying, we're seeing so many women now excel, and that's amazing. And they're doing it in a feminine way, not just in a manly way. Like, there's a little bit of something for everyone. And I feel like almost every single demographic is now finally being represented. It's more inclusive than ever. And it's also providing really good opportunities for people like Penelope Ford. I think arguably, in my opinion, Penelope Ford had one of the best matches of her career at Fyter Fest. And yes. I was just like, go you, girl. Like, this is your time to shine. That is awesome. Keep it going, And then Britt Baker, once she was no longer kind of that baby face and she got to turn like full heel mode, you guys are finally seeing the personality just ooze out of Britt Baker. Like, you love to hate her. That's the kind of stuff talent needs. And I like to call it the Miz effect. And I say that all the time because to me it was true. For the longest time, all people had to hear was, I'm the Miz. and they would already start booing. You didn't even have to hear the z.
Yep.
Like, that's what he had to do. He didn't have to do anything to get booed out of the building. That's money. That's lots and lots and lots of money.
Look at MJF now. You know, MJF is kind of like that old school heel that lives the gimmick, and a lot of people get so angry at him. Well, that's the point. You know, like I had a big rant about Baron Corbin, and people are like, "Oh, you know, go away, Heat. I don't want him on my TV." Well, I don't understand. What does go away, Heat mean? Either you like somebody or you don't like somebody, and if you hate Baron Corbin, well, that's the point. You're supposed to hate Baron Corbin. So, you know, if he's making you hate him, you know, I don't like cool heels. I don't like heels where you want to buy their T-shirt. You're supposed to despise them. That's the whole point. And I think MJF and Baron Corbin and Britt Baker are doing that right now. It's absolutely fantastic.
I think the issue that you brought up, I want to say, in my opinion, is part of like this cancel culture. Like, oh, I hate that person so much, I'm going to change the channel. It's like, why don't you love to just hate them then?
Yes.
Like, just love to hate them like heels were meant to. Like when I was training at OVW, it was really stressed about that old school storytelling, but also the paying your dues and appreciating the business. So a lot of people don't realize I set up rings for like a good 10 years. Like I was setting up rings before TNA. I was even setting up rings while I was still in TNA and even after TNA. I know how to wrap the production cables and setting up chairs. In the beginning of my career, I sometimes got people their coffees and carried their bags. Like I paid dues.
Yeah.
And for me, I was trained with that mentality that you're only as good as your heel. And it's the heel's job to get the baby face over, especially if the baby face is green and doesn't know what the heck to do. And then if you're only as good as your heel, then as the baby face, you should be splitting the profit with the heel because you're only as good as your heel. Like that's that kind of old school training that I was really taught. And so for a little while, when I wasn't allowed to go out and sell gimmicks, sometimes like I remember one time, she's now Ruby Riott. At the time, she was Heidi Lovelace. She came back and gave me some of her gimmick money because I wasn't at that time allowed to sell my merch. And we did such a good job with this storyline that she actually gave me some of her merch. And I remember when I turned babyface, I did that for somebody else. Nice. And the person I did it for, they were like, the heck? Like they had no idea what that meant. And then I explained to them and I was like, hey, listen, yada, yada, yada. Here's why. Here you go. Right is right. You know,
Taylor, you're such an awesome person, and I think we're kind of cut from the same mold. And I know for myself, a lot of time good people get taken advantage of, and I know in my life I've been taken advantage of because of my kindness, and I'm sure that's happened to you because you know people do see kindness as a weakness sometimes, but you know, but at the end of the day, we win because I think when you're a good person and you know you're doing good, you feel good about yourself. And I think, you know, and I think even if somebody takes advantage of it, there's going to be somebody that becomes a better person because of it. So you should definitely you should definitely feel good about yourself for doing things like that.
Thank you. I mean, I agree with everything that you said. I think when presented with a choice, just choose to be kind. And you're always going to win if you choose to be free with your authenticity. When you're free with your authenticity, that's a freedom like you wouldn't believe. Like since 2018, I've been showing the world the real me, who I am, and being my own boss, living my dreams on my terms and doing things the way I envision them with my creativity and my goals. And that has been the most freeing choice I've ever made. And it all started with just doing the right thing, telling the truth, and choosing to be kind, and learning that people in life, not just in the business, but in life, sometimes people need you to be the villain in their story. And I was just telling this to another female wrestler. I said, you have to learn to be okay with that. You just have to. And why? Because it's not your story, it's theirs. Just because they need you to be the bad guy, just because they need you to be the villain, doesn't mean it's your reality. Doesn't mean it's the truth. It just means that their illusions that they have set up for themselves are so fragile that they can't handle the possibility of it being fractured or destroyed. So you need to be the villain for that person. And that's just how it goes. And you have to learn to be okay with that because it's not your story. But that doesn't mean that that has to be your reality. And and that kind of crosses over into being kind. Yeah, some people may think that kindness is weakness, but it's not. When you want to punch somebody's teeth in until they look like this, and you don't, and you smile and you're nice to them and treat them like a good human being anyway, even though you know they're not, that's hard as hell. And anybody that's done that, when you want to tell somebody off and swear 7 ways to Sunday, that's strength. That's hard AF, okay? Like, so therefore, kindness is not weakness. Kindness is a strength that you would not believe, and you will get tested.
And you will in your life. And I remember I was in high school, and I remember I was working at a grocery store in high school. And I remember my manager said to me, "You know what, Dave, you're too nice. You're just too nice." And he was saying it in a negative way. It was a criticism. And I remember a customer said to me, overheard the conversation, and he came up to me and said, "If that's the worst thing that they put on your tombstone, then you had a pretty damn good life. So don't ever let anybody tell you that, you're too nice." So I remember that, and that was, over, my gosh, at this point, 35 years ago. And I always remembered that, and I don't know who that person was. I don't know who that person's name was, and I never saw that person again after that, but I remembered that. And you know what? There's strength in being nice, as you said. You can be strong AF for being nice, but you know what? There's worse things that they can put on your tombstone than being too nice.
Yes, do not be afraid to be kind, people. It just shows that you are so much mentally stronger than you would ever believe yourself possible. And don't be afraid of people saying that you're difficult to deal with or this and that and the other. I've learned from people more successful than myself that difficult to deal with really translates to, in other words, you're difficult to F over. You're difficult to take advantage of. And people don't want you to see that side of their words because they want you to feel a certain way so they can have power over you. But for me, like we were saying earlier, this is your one chance at bat. This is your one chance in life that you're going to remember anyway, to go after your dreams. And if you're going to allow other people that should have never had power over you to dictate how you feel about yourself, you're not going to make it anywhere, because that's everybody else's pain being projected onto you. That's everyone else's insecurities being projected out onto you. Don't let somebody else's hurt amplify your own nonsense, because you got to deal with your own nonsense. Everybody else is just glad it's your nonsense and not theirs. You know what I mean? So I think the more people that realize that kindness is strength and to not be afraid about what other people say, they're going to go a lot farther. And I think more people need to hear that, and they need to hear people talking about it, because then it's going to be instilled in their mind. And I think young kids especially, because I don't know about you, but I'm confident in saying I didn't really grow up with social media. I didn't really grow up with video games. I didn't have a Facebook until college. That's how not hip I was, okay? So I didn't really have social media dictating how I should feel about myself. I had pop culture doing that for me. But kids these days, when I was a teacher years ago, I had 5-year-olds that had better iPhones than phones that I had. That's the kind of world we live in now. So that's making kids accessible to being targeted so much younger than you and I could ever imagine. Like I grew up in the times when we still played with, Barbie dolls. That's not as popular now, where board games was an awesome gift to get at Christmas. Not anymore,
Yeah.
That's the kind of upbringing I had. When I call your name through the window, you better come home because it's time to come in for dinner. That kind of upbringing, where they said, no, you don't have asthma, we can't afford it,
Yes.
that kind of upbringing. But nowadays, kids, it's not a millennial issue, it's a society issue. And I think when people say it's a millennial issue, it's because they themselves can't identify with it. And that's okay. You didn't grow up that way. It's okay if you can identify with it, but at least acknowledge that it's a problem. So I think more kids hearing us talk about things like this, it's going to help them understand what they're up against when they go out into the world. These people on social media, they're not showing you the real struggle. You're seeing their level 100. You didn't see levels 1 through 99 to get to that best life. You didn't see all the struggles. If you see somebody that's well put together, why not think of yourself that way? Because I guarantee you somebody else is looking at you as if you have all your stuff together and they don't. So why not see that through your own eyes too. And that's what I want out of this podcast, is for more people to understand that it's okay to have a bad day. It's okay to second guess yourself. It's okay to be a human being, but don't allow those things to dictate a negative life and a negative self outlook, because I've been there. Like what you were saying, wrestling's a hard industry, and I allowed it to eat me alive for so long until I couldn't look in the mirror, because I was like, wow, like I don't recognize myself. I don't recognize this person, not even a woman, but just this person staring back at me. I don't even think she's a woman. Like that's how negative I saw it. And I was like, I can't even piece together, why I even started. I forgot my why. And that was the big wake up moment. It was like, no, this isn't who I am. This is never who I set out to be. I will be damned if I'm going to be this. This is not me, and I will not. I refuse. And I think more people need to look at life that way and try to be the adult you needed as a child. You need to, be able to pay homage to the kid that you were, that was a dreamer, that gave you your dreams, who then made way for you to grow up one day. And that's kind of what changed my aspect on a lot of things.
You have to take control. Yeah, you have to take control of your own life. And I think a lot of people depend on others to do that for them. And you have to do it yourself. You have to do it yourself. You have to be happy with who you are, and then you have to take control. Because the only people that say you can't do something are those who can't do it. Because if you can do it yourself, you're going to encourage other people to do it. And there's been a lot of people, Taylor, that I've worked with, even on this show, Busted Open, that have said, Dave, you can't do this. You're not able to do it. You don't have a great voice, and your personality is not what it should be, and nobody cares about that. Well, you know what? Busted Open's been on the air for 11 years. It's the #1 sports talk show on all of Sirius XM. And you know what? I just bought a house for my wife and my family, because of this show. So for all those people that said I could not do it, well, I've done it. And Taylor, for you, all those people that were obstacles in your way, now you're writing blogs and you're hosting shows and you're writing books and you're stepping through the ropes and you're wrestling professionally. Like if I would have told an 11-year-old Taylor that, you would have been hosting your own show and writing and wrestling, you would have been like, oh my God, you're crazy. But you've done it. You've been able to do that. And at the end of the day, be proud of the work that you've done. And, you and I have been talking now for over 50 minutes. And I would say for 90% of those 50 minutes, you've had a smile on your face. So obviously it's not because of me. It's because you're happy with what you're doing. You're happy having this conversation. You're happy of being able to do that podcast. All the credit to you, because you have told all those negative people, all those naysayers, all those people that told you no, that you can do it, and you have done it. So you should. I'm telling you, Taeler Hendrix, me, Dave LaGreca, is telling you that you should be proud of yourself, and I hope that you are proud of yourself.
Thank you. I am. I said earlier today, I have to take the good with the bad, right? Because I like to ask this of people on my channel, and I also answer it, candidly myself, is, if you could go back and change anything, would you? And if so, what is it? And when I think of that question myself, I honestly say, I've been through a lot of really great memories and experiences and first times, like, being the first in so many different divisions and all kinds of stuff, and in life, releasing books, all kinds of really amazing stuff, like you said. But then I've also experienced a lot of really bad stuff too. A lot of stuff that really makes you think like, oh, but I don't think I would change any of it, not a single thing, because there's no guarantee that I would still be the same person sitting here today if I changed one of those things. So I have to accept the good with the bad and realize that if I like me now, and I'm like, kind of like me, I can't guarantee that I would be the same person if I went back and changed a little bit of this or a whole bit of that. There's no guarantee, so like you said, you have to take stock and you have to bet on yourself and love yourself enough to realize this is your one chance at bat, and to do something and not let other people dictate to you your own self-worth. I mean, that's the bottom line. Like, would you want somebody trying to tell your kids that, they can't do this, they can't do that, they're never going to make it? Absolutely not. So then why are you letting other people tell that to you? Kids are sponges. They're not going to do what you say. They're going to do what they see you do.
Yeah.
So if they see you doing what you're doing now, going after your dreams, having the #1 show on Sirius XM radio, buying a house, loving your wife and kids, eventually they're going to grow up to be confident adults that will love their significant others, that will go after their dreams and fulfill their own accomplishments that they defined as happy and successful. And that is amazing. And the world would be such a better place with more people doing that.
And Taylor, you even said it, that even though there's been a lot of bad things that happened in your life, you wouldn't have changed it because it's a part of who you are. It's a part of your past, and it's part of your makeup. You're part of your being. An example I like to use is that, Violetta's an amazing wife, but she's not my first wife. I went through a really bad marriage and a really bad divorce, and it was awful. But at the same time, as bad as that was, I have my daughter Abigail from that. So out of all that hate and anger, I have a beautiful daughter that came from that relationship. Life isn't black and white. There's a lot of gray area. And, you have to look at, yes, there are some bad things that have happened, but some of those bad things is because of me, and you have to look at yourself in the mirror and say, what could I have done to make that situation better? And you learn from it. And like you said, it's a part of who you are, and you wouldn't change a thing. And when you're able to say that, you're able to say that when you finally succeed. So when you finally find that success and define who you are, then you don't care about the mistakes of your past because it helped that road to get to that successful goal.
Yeah.
So, that's how I know that you've succeeded, is because you're not afraid to say, I've made mistakes and I wouldn't change those mistakes because it didn't define me, but it made me who I am.
And to add on to that is, I'll never regret, telling the truth. If people don't want to hear the truth about anything, that's not your problem. I take the good with the bad. I also believe in telling the truth and doing the right thing because it's the right thing to do, not because it's popular or because it's trending or because you want something out of it. Just be a good human being. Growing up, I saw my mom try very, very hard. We didn't have a lot. But I was happy. We played jacks and played with chalk, when I was growing up. We didn't have a lot, but we were happy. And for me, that allowed me to define my own version of happiness and success. And I think that's important for more people to do, is don't let anybody rush your timeline. Life is not a timeline. You don't have to graduate high school at this time, go to college and get into debt and graduate college at this time, to get a job that can't even afford to pay your student loans by this time, to buy a house that you can't afford because you're still paying those student loans because you're told you have to buy a house by this time unless you're not successful. You have to get married by this time and have children by this time, or else you're not successful and you're weird. You have to retire by this time. It's why not build a life that you don't need to retire from because you love what you do and you're able to still do it? Why not go to college because you want to? Why not do what you love in life and work hard at your own dream instead of someone else's? Don't let people rush your timeline. Life isn't a timeline. If you have kids after 40, that's still amazingly beautiful and a blessing. If you buy a house after 50, that's still a boss move. If you never go to college, who cares? I know people that are making $50,000 and sometimes millions more than people that have PhDs. So it's different for everyone, and I want more people to just be in love with living, if that makes sense. Even if it's just going to Dunkin' Donuts and getting a bacon, egg, and cheese and a coffee. Whatever makes you happy, just do it.
Yeah, Dennis Leary, the comedian, always said life is about that cookie. Eating that cookie that gives you so much pleasure. That's what life's about. You go through all the BS just to be able to get that cookie and enjoy that cookie. So, find your cookie, find that thing that gives you joy. And once you find that, then, all the other BS won't really matter.
Have that cookie and eat it too.
That's right.
So, if you could book any main event for, say, WrestleMania, Madison Square Garden, what would it be? You're in the hot seat. Go.
Wait a second. I'm the booker, and now are you asking any wrestlers right now?
Yeah.
So wrestlers right now, main event at Madison Square Garden. Now, I don't know how many people would want to buy a ticket to see this or not, but yeah. Wow. Jeez, you put me on the hot spot. All right. I'm gonna show some bias here. You asked me who my favorite wrestlers are right now, and I'm a big Britt Baker fan, and I'm a big Tasha Steelz fan. Now they're both heels, but they're so different, and their styles clash. But I think styles make a fight. So I think for me, Madison Square Garden, sold out crowd, New York City, Tasha Steelz, who's a Jersey girl, going up against. You know what? I'm going to change it. Two Jersey girls, Deonna Purrazzo and Tasha Steelz, going at it for the pride of New Jersey and New York City. How about that? Does that make sense? Probably.
That's tremendous. And they both have trained with each other, so they already have really good in-ring chemistry.
And you know what? They're both Jersey girls. And you know what? New Jersey's better than New York City. New Jersey's always second to New York, and I'm tired of it because everybody from New York has that elitist New York attitude. But everybody knows New Jersey has better Italian food than New York City does. So I want to see two Jersey girls going at it in a sold-out Madison Square Garden in New York. And yet I'm still here. I've been talking to you for 50 minutes. I'm still moving my laptop.
I like that you're cutting a promo right now. It's tremendous. And yet, meanwhile, I'm born and raised in Mass, and we hate New Jersey.
You know what, Taylor? Take back everything I said about you. I love Massachusetts. And I'm from New Jersey, and I'm tired of people calling it Dunkin'. It's not Dunkin'. It's Dunkin' Donuts, all right? They made famous by donuts, not because of their hash browns, not because of their croissant sandwiches. It's for their donuts. It's Dunkin' Donuts for a reason. I'm tired of hearing people calling it Dunkin'. What do you dunk? What do you dunk? You dunk the donut. That's why it's called Dunkin' Donuts.
Well, this is gonna really make you enraged right now. Like, I'm talking like eyes fit to burst mad. That now the new installments for the franchise for Dunkin' Donuts, a lot of them just say Dunkin' on the outside, not the donuts.
The one down the street says Dunkin'. What are you dunking? You're dunking a donut. You don't dunk hash browns. You don't dunk a croissant sandwich. You don't dunk a muffin. You dunk a donut, Taylor. A donut.
Love it. All right, I want to wrap this up with a final question for you. You have been watching sports and making it your livelihood for a very long time now. With this new norm with coronavirus and everything going on and all these new protocols that we're just starting to get familiar with, what are you kind of excited to see from sports coming forward, you know, with baseball now and football coming back and hopefully hockey, because I miss me some Boston Bruins. What are you expecting going forward with, you know, to see with the new protocol and the people that are actually going to play and all of that?
Just to be safe. I mean, if it was up to me, I would have had everybody take a year off and see where we were in 2021. Listen, fans are just going to have to used to their not being fans. And the atmosphere, especially in pro wrestling, is so different without fans in attendance. But just appreciate what the athletes are doing. I think that's what we all need to do, and understand that maybe your favorite athlete is not going to play that game. And just safety is the most important thing. So during this time, until we get to the other side of this, just understand that safety is the protocol. It's the same thing. Hey, a lot of the rules in the NFL changed the last few years. Why did they change? For safety reasons. So a lot of people are yelling and screaming, saying, why are they doing this? Why are they doing it? They're doing it for safety. So that changed the NFL. So the world of sports are changing. We're going to have to change with it. And safety is the first thing. That's first before anything else. And hopefully when we get on the other side, it will get to be what normal is. But know that normal is not normal right now. And we're evolving and we're changing. And safety is the protocol right now in 2020.
I couldn't agree more. Are you watching anything on Netflix right now that you wouldn't have gotten into otherwise?
I'm actually going back and watching things from my childhood. I think, you know, when there's times of discomfort, you go back to things that made you comfortable. So I'm going back and watching a lot of old shows, watching The Twilight Zone, watching Cheers, you know, watching Columbo. I'm watching a lot of things that I watched in my childhood because I'm kind of finding that comfort zone. So that's where I am at right now. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, can you tell everybody where they can find you on social media as well as how they can tune into your show on Busted Open Radio?
Sure. We're on Sirius XM channel 156. We're live Monday through Saturday, 9 to noon. So you can always listen to Busted Open live 6 days a week. That's right. Also, if you're cheap and you can't afford Sirius XM, don't worry. You can subscribe to the Busted Open podcast Monday through Saturday as well. It's the best of our show, 45-minute version of our 3-hour show. And you can subscribe to that on Pandora, Apple Podcasts as well for free. And then also you can follow me on Twitter at David LaGreca1. You can go to my Pro Wrestling Tees store. I got 7 different T-shirts. Go to ProWrestlingTees.com. And also, if you want a LaGreca rant and you saw and heard a taste of that, go to Cameo. Very cheap, only $25 for a LaGreca cameo. So many ways to get Dave LaGreca, many ways to get Busted Open.
All right, the last thing I want to leave everybody with on Talks with Taeler Hendrix is there any little bit of advice that you would give people based on your experiences in life and going after your dreams and becoming successful? What would you tell them? It doesn't matter what their dream is, just the act alone of trying to find yourself and find the confidence to do it. What would you say?
Well, I got a couple of different pieces of advice. One, believe in yourself. Don't let anyone ever tell you no or that you can't do it. Don't ever take no for an answer. All right. You bust your ass. If you believe in yourself, in time, people will believe in you as well. So that's the first thing, is believe in yourself. And the other thing on the professional side, be on time. Because when you're late, that gives people the impression that you don't care. If you care, you'll be on time. So 1, believe in yourself. 2, be on time.
Awesome. Was there a third?
Respect yourself and respect others. Respect others. Okay? So, you can't respect others, then you know what? You have no place in any business. So always respect your coworkers. Always respect your peers.
Awesome. Thank you so much for taking time out to be with Talks with Taeler Hendrix. I really appreciate it. Lots of good stuff today.
Are you sure you're not going to delete this?
No, never.
Taeler, it's been an absolute pleasure being with you, and thank you so much. I really am very thankful that you took the time to talk to me today.
I am too. Thank you so much for all the truth bombs. I think everybody's going to love this podcast. We'll definitely have you on again very soon.
Thank you. And you need to come on Busted Open, Taeler.
Deal.